Welcome back to the Turn on the Music podcast. This is episode 18. I'm going to remember to introduce myself today. So my name is Kyle. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend CJ. How are you today, sir?
Good. I'm so glad you remembered to introduce yourself so I didn't have to do it for you.
Yes.
So, that's good.
So, speaking of introducing, you owe me 2 introductions.
I do. I owe you 2 introductions. The past week is a little crazy because I was actually out of state. Well, not out of state. I was
yes, Albany is in the same state.
Yes, I was at a training out of town, I meant to say. So last week I was preparing for that, and then I just got back last night. So I do owe you 2. Hopefully the next 2 will come soon, like next week or the week after. Yeah, well, hey, I got to make it good. I got to help you.
That's true. So you had a long car ride. Did you listen to anything interesting during that car ride?
I listened to an episode of a podcast that I was curious about.
What podcast was that?
It happened to be on music or something.
Sounds boring.
I know, right? These 2 guys, they just talk back and forth, and there's that one guy.
The one guy that just rambled on and on and on.
I listened to. Actually, it's really funny. I didn't listen to much. On my way up, I listened to Dream Theater, which was a good part of the trip, which is really funny because I think I messaged you at some point because I used dictation in my car, so I was hands free. But I messaged you and I said, now I understand why you consider Dream Theater your focus music, because it definitely. Yes. And I forgot what I put in my text, but I think it was along the lines that it's that type of music that you want to listen to everything that's going on. So it's either making you focus on the music while you're doing other things, or it's making you focus on the things because the music is there's so much happening in a good way. In a good way.
I don't know how to explain it, but I just zero in and just I'm just there. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's kind of when it was on, I was I was doing 80 and I was just going, following the map and going, there wasn't any other distractions. I swerved the way I needed to swerve to get in and out of traffic, and it was just very interesting. On the way back, I did listen to 1 or 2 of our episodes because I was just curious about the guy who edits them. I had to check on them. So that was just that guy. So I was curious to see and to listen. And then LeVar Burton has one. LeVar Burton Reads. Let me just double check the title of it. I'm just a fan of LeVar Burton in general, and we all love him from Reading Rainbow and from Star Trek. So he actually, it's LeVar Burton Reads. He's on all podcast things, but it's basically he takes short stories that he finds that are interesting to him or may have been award winners or whatever, and it's really cool because I kind of feel like we need to implement this on ours. He tells you about the story, and then before he goes into it, he goes, "Okay, everybody, let's take a deep breath." And he takes a deep breath. And I caught myself taking a deep breath with him because LeVar Burton said so. And I loved it because the episode that I was listening to, he's like, that's my favorite part of the episode is taking a deep breath. But it's really cool. So if you're really into literature and you want to just hear different stories, some are quirky, some are it's kind of all over the place. He's just phenomenal. And it's really well produced. They have some sounds in it, some background music. He does a good job differentiating the male and female characters, and they do a great job of having his narration voice versus having the character speaking. So they kind of change up how that sounds. So it's really well produced.
Nice.
So LeVar Burton Reads. I would definitely check it out. But after that, today I listened to the band. I'm not going to say their name because I don't know how you want to introduce them, but the band that you are going to be. We're going to introduce today to our listeners. How about yourself?
Well, before I get to me, I sent you an album. Did you listen to it? You requested an album, and I sent you one. Or did it not go through?
What did you send me? Oh, I did listen to it.
Stanley Clarke Live with the Greek.
Yes. That was, I listened to that before. Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember.
What'd you think?
I listened to that before Dream Theater. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
It was a very good album. Actually, it's really funny you brought that up. Long story short, the night that we were there, it was kind of like a mingle night to get to know the other people in the other locations across the state for the company that I work for. And I met a few new people, and we had to like give what do they call it? Like a fun fact. So I was kind of excited that our episode was dropping yesterday. So I was like, we're launching our 17th episode of our 13 episode podcast tomorrow. Like that was the fun fact. And everybody was like, what is it about? And we all started talking about music.
Nice.
And everybody was like, oh, this. And towards the end of the night, after we were kind of like hanging out and mingling and having a few drinks, I was talking to a few people about like genre of music. And I'm sitting there and they started asking each other the same exact questions that we kind of interview with, which I thought was really cool. Like, what genre do you like to listen to? What do you do? And it was really cool to kind of hear that. And I shared the album with somebody, a few, and so it was kind of cool to have that conversation in a public setting with a group of people and be able to share this out. So whether we've gained listeners or I was able to just share new music or new artists in the sense of new artists new to them, that's what happened. So Stanley Clarke, that album was one of the ones I was like, oh, my friend just shared this with me and I shared it out. So it was cool. It was good.
And if you are new, welcome. I hope you enjoy.
Yes. If you are listening, welcome to the craziness of this thing we call a podcast. Yes. So the music for what have you been?
So I found someone new.
So
I've talked about the Iridium before. That was where I saw Victor Wooten and took all the pictures at that show. I'm still on their mailing list, so I don't know why, because I'm 700 miles away from the venue. But I go through and I look at, just to see who's coming, and there was a whole list of people that I've never seen before or heard of.
Oh, really?
All right. So we have to go check that out. So I looked through all of them, and the one that stood out was a guitarist by the name of Ana Popovic, who is from, oh boy, I'm going to forget now. I forget where she's from. Oh, where is she from?
I don't want to try it based upon the name because I don't want to like screw up the...
Yugoslavia.
Okay.
She's from Yugoslavia. Very interesting story. I'll link the article that I found on her in the show notes, but I'm going to play a little bit of stuff for you. This is off of one of her live albums called Can You Stand the Heat?
Zone, I got plenty to lose, yeah. Baby, I'm burning inside, trying to keep my cool. I got cold shivers down my spine, I can't keep my seat on. It's all about a first impression, baby, can't stand the heat. Oh, trying to speak with a dry throat, standing still and shake your knee, yeah. Wardrobe leaves me insecurely, left to freeze. When I come across a second to none, housekeeping a beat hard. It's all about a first impression, baby, can't you stand the heat? I got high expectations and I'm hungry for more, yeah. Woman's put me down the line, show me what
So that's a little bit funky soul kind of stuff, but then she's got other stuff that's like really like blues.
Cause baby, I can leave you too. You don't need a new situation, you need a new plan. If you want a brand new woman, yo, gotta be a brand new man.
Is she she's the guitarist, you said?
She's the guitarist and the singer.
Guitarist and singer, okay.
Yep. And so she's got some blues stuff, she's got some jazz stuff on this one album, and phenomenal players, and she's a really good guitarist. So Ana Popovic.
Is she like, when I say older, like to me, because with social media nowadays, you get a lot of like younger artists, which is awesome because they're getting seen that they normally wouldn't get seen. Would you place her like in her 20s or would you place her older?
She was born in 76.
Oh, okay. So she's in her 40s.
Old, so 45.
Yeah, 45. Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I've been stuck on her. And, of course, Robert Randolph, who we're talking about tonight.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
I don't have it. Like, I was looking for something cool to bring up, like we did with the Google Doodle last week, and I didn't really come across anything. I was briefly going through Instagram, and something came up about banjo, and I missed it, so I can't remember the artist, but they were talking about an artist who is trying to transcend banjo into potentially other genres, is what I got out of it. So I'm hoping that I come across it again, and I can bring it up or share it. We could share it out next time. I'll actually take some notes down on it, and we can share out the Instagram accounts as well. But it was just interesting. It was like kind of like, what's that? And I was like, oh damn, I forgot to save it.
Well, I can tell you this: if you're looking for someone who transcends genres on the banjo, Bela Fleck.
Yes.
So I mean,
and
he's got a strictly classical album of like Bach and Chopin.
Right.
And,
well, and your friend Rachel, who we interviewed, I mean, we shared out her information on that episode, which was episode 3. Episode 3.
Yeah, 2 was Amber Rubarth, and 3 was
episode
Rachel,
3.
So.
And I forgot to count the intro episode. And check out that episode. Listen to what Rachel has to say, and check out her YouTube channel, because she really has she's really doing some awesome stuff. Like, I've been catching them periodically, and I'll watch through them. So.
And the neat thing is a few weeks ago, she bought that new banjo from Tennessee or whatever, went down to pick it up and learned, and actually met her YouTube banjo teacher. She's back down there, or was back down there this past weekend, to spend some more time with him and learn some more stuff.
That's very cool.
She's going to come back with some pretty cool stories, I hope.
That's awesome. All right.
So I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Oh, man. Listen, I'm not complaining, Not everybody's a Mets fan, but I'm a Mets fan, and they're up 2 in the series against the Yankees, so I'm happy. Throw me that curveball.
Yeah, that's fine. I haven't been paying attention to the game today.
And that's all I know about baseball.
Just enough to drive me nuts on the podcast. All right, cool. Thanks. So normally we do our shout-outs at the end of the episode. I want to do our shout-out before we start.
Cool.
So I was looking through my email right before we jumped on, and I got an email from a listener, my good friend Charlie, who we've talked about a few times. He's been following along. I don't know how many episodes he's in, but he did comment on the Tower of Power episode. He did comment on the Little Charlie episode. And I have to say that, him being kind of my teacher when it comes to learning all of these new things, he's still teaching me stuff. So he sent me a link to a video, and we talked about the Tower of Power episode, how they don't have a Christmas album.
Right.
He found a video of Steve Kupka, who is the Barry sax player, at a church with what looks like people from church doing a Christmas medley.
No way.
And yes, so they do Go Tell It on the Mountain, and then they go into Chicago's 25 or 6-4. Then they go back to Go Tell on the Mountain. They go into Squib Cakes by Tower of Power, and then they go into September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. So if you want to listen to the whole thing, I'll play the whole thing. If not, I'll just go play a short clip of it.
Play a short clip, but give us a little Christmas in July.
Absolutely. So here is the funky Dr. Steve Kupka with the Bethlehem Church of Santa Clarita, California.
So good.
So they weave Go Tell It on the Mountain in between all of that. 25 or 64, they use the melody and they use Go Tell on the Mountain, and they go back and forth, and then they eventually close with September by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, definitely got
just a really cool video.
Definitely got to link that in the show notes.
Absolutely, it will definitely be in the show notes.
So does this mean that we can get Charlie on?
He wants to be on.
Oh, he wants to be on.
What one of his emails said, how do I get on this podcast?
This is fantastic.
So, yes, absolutely. We are going to figure out a way. I don't know where he is at the moment. I know he was moving at some point. I don't know if he's moved yet, but we're going to get him on somehow. We'll figure out how to do it.
Cool. So that's awesome.
But for sure.
I look forward to meeting him virtually and having that conversation.
Well, remember he went to Joe Bonamassa.
That's right. I mean, right.
So re-meeting
I don't
him
know
again.
why I forget that.
Yeah.
I don't remember why I forget that, but that's right. We was the three of us. Yep. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because that I just remember, you know what it is? It stands out in the whole thing is the theremin. Nothing against you, Charlie. Just totally like the theremin just kind of blew my mind at that.
Just geeking out over the theremin.
That's very cool. I'm excited. I'm glad that he reached out.
Yeah,
that's a good shout.
And I can't wait to learn more.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Because I'm sure he's got a ton more to teach.
Oh, that's I listen. I look forward to just hearing what he has to say and whatever he can share with us too.
Yep, absolutely.
That's great.
So, all right. So Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
Who's that?
Who's that? I want to. I probably should have made this disclaimer before we played "Go Tell It on the Mountain," but the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit religious. Robert Randolph is from a religious church. That's where he grew up learning music. He started in a church in, believe it or not, New Jersey. And I didn't know this. I kind of assumed that he was from further down south because he plays the pedal steel guitar. So that's really popular in the southern area of the United States, down in like the Mississippi area and New Orleans and that sort of thing. It's very popular down there. So learning that he was from New Jersey shocked me a little bit. But he is originally from New Jersey, and he grew up in a church called, let me get this church right, House of God Church in Orange, New Jersey. So for those of you that don't know, I'm originally from New York, so I still say orange, but I almost said orange there. People always give me grief about how I say that word. That and the word Mario, or the name Mario. I say Mario, not Mario. And people get offended by that word. Mario. It's Mario and Luigi.
It's me, Mario.
So he started playing at the age of 14. He learned the pedal steel guitar. So before we get to the pedal steel guitar, there was a tradition of steel guitars that go back to early 30s and probably even before then. But they were popular in church. They were actually made out of metal. They were steel guitars, which gives a different sound than wood, obviously, because it's a different material. And the steel guitar, the steel pedal guitar, it's almost like if you took the neck of a guitar and cut it off and laid it down flat on a table, and then you play it that way. There's no sound hole. There's no real wood. There's really no body of the guitar. It looks just like the neck, but it's slightly elongated. There are pedals on the floor. I have no idea what they do. I know what the pedals on the piano do. There's lots of them on the guitar. I don't know what they do. I assume it's got to be some sort of sustain or something, but I don't know. So he actually learned this while just watching people. So, I know people here, these days, they're watching people on YouTube. He was sitting in a church watching these steel pedal guitar players and learning how to play just based on their motions. And back then, the church was, the steel pedal guitar came out of the country tradition, the country genre, which I know excites you very much. You love the country genre.
Enjoy it immensely.
But the cool thing about Robert Randolph is he is very much influenced by funk and soul and jazz. So he started to introduce that into the church. And the following that he got based on just doing that was huge. And he became really well known in the area. And eventually a gentleman by the name of Matt Hickey found him and signed him to a deal where he was opening up for a group called the North Mississippi All-Stars. They're a group from down south, obviously in Mississippi. Really great group.
I know those group. Do I know them through you?
Probably.
Because I definitely know that I've listened to them and at some point had an album of theirs. Back in the day when you had to buy things like CDs and stuff.
Right. And so he ended up opening up for North Mississippi All-Stars. And he did that for about a month. And Medeski, Martin, and Wood heard of him. And John Medeski said, you're too good to be playing with them. Come play with me. And he started playing with them. And in 2001, they released an album together, a gospel album called The Word. Shortly after that, I think it was in 2001, same year, he released his very first album, which is the album that I shared with you, Live at the Wetlands.
Yes,
one of my favorite albums of all time.
That's a great album.
And yeah, so the story goes like this. So here's the story. I was living in New York at the time, and I was just looking for something to do. There was a huge storm that just stopped, and I decided to go to Borders Books to just look for new music. I didn't know what I wanted. I want something new. And this is, back in the day, when CDs were around, I liked going to Borders and Barnes & Noble, and Mr. Cheapo's was another good one, because you had some people there that were like music people like us, like, are you looking for something new? Try this, try that, Well, there was nobody there, so I just kind of looked through, and I found this album that looked kind of interesting, and I went, oh, it's live. I'll probably like it.
Did you judge it by the cover?
Absolutely, I did. It was just a bunch of guys sitting there playing in what looked like a dimly lit, bar. I went, well, it's got to be good if it made it onto a CD. So I want to bring up the introduction to this, which I should have done beforehand, but I didn't, because I am a slacker.
Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of know this. You mentioned that Nick mentioned that too, so in his shout out.
that is true.
Charlie, if you're listening, this is what you have to deal with when we're recording.
That is if this makes it into the recording.
True. Editor has too much power.
So I remember the day quite vividly, because the sun was really cool. It was kind of an orangey gold. I remember walking out, and it was, it just a huge thunderstorm. So like steam was coming off the black top, and it was just, I don't know why it sticks in my head, but I was driving my Mazda Miata at the time. This is back when I had my Mazda Miata and my Ford F-150.
Yeah, I remember that.
You don't sound excited about my Mazda Miata.
Because, we shouldn't sit in Miatas.
No, we shouldn't.
We shouldn't have sat in your Mini Cooper. I mean, we just...
That's true.
That's another story.
Yeah. So anyway, the storm was so bad, I almost took my F-150 that day, but I ended up taking the Miata. That's not important for the story. But I remember I put the CD in, and the introduction to this album is an epic, introduction. It's just a great introduction. So I want to play this for you, just so you guys get an idea of how the album starts.
Over the last 13 years, we've all been very fortunate to experience some very special memories on this stage, and some very magical moments. But I think I speak on behalf of everyone, both the fans and people who have worked at this club, to say that some of the most powerful memories have been created just in the last year. With this band that's about to come up, has touched us in a way that we'll never forget. So when the word came that we wouldn't be having too many shows at this place, we knew we needed one artist to come back and bring that magic back one more time. And we're all very lucky, because he's going to be giving it to us for many years to come. But please welcome for one more time here on this stage, Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
With an introduction like that, it's either going to be amazing or just awful.
It's true.
And thankfully it is one of my favorite albums ever of all time. And just, wow. I mean, the only downside of the album is it's only 6 tracks, and it was just the first half of the show. I don't know where the second half of the show is. I want it. If someone knows how to get it, I want it. So let me know. And so this album is very much a jam band type album. It's not really, there's really no, I mean, there's tunes and the chord structures that they kind of, and songs really, but they're not really what you would expect from, an album. You were going to hear a jam band. That's what you were here.
Right.
To go
right.
see.
And I think that's what hooked me too, is just, I didn't listen to jam bands a lot, and then you were like, check this out. And I was like, okay. But you, I mean, you never really steered me wrong. So I was going with it. And then when they played, I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Yeah, to have seen that live, just to be able to have potentially seen that live, it's probably yeah.
And one of the things I love is that there's so many tracks on this and so many instances in these little tracks where you can hear them playing. And, we always talk about how music is a language. And there's so many times where Robert says something musically, like, it's almost like, hey, I found this cool idea. Figure out what to play with this, and so he'll play it and introduce it. And you can kind of hear the band figuring it out as they go along. And slight spoiler alert, this is one of my problems with Dave Matthews Band is because they don't do that. They're a jam band that they plan out a lot of stuff, and music is a language. If you know how to speak it, you can just do it without that planning. Well, and I can feel that in the Dave Matthews stuff.
So it's Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
Yes.
Now, it is his family.
It is his family. So in this album, it was his two cousins who played bass and the drums, and then there was a keyboard player. Now there are, I think there's 4 of them. They're all in his family. Let me find the list. So there's Robert Randolph. There's Marcus Randolph, who I believe is playing guitar, I think. Lanisha Randolph, who is doing backup vocals, and Brett Haas, who I believe is playing bass.
And I'm not saying that because they're family, that's why they're able to do what they're doing. Because if you play with a group, they become your family.
Absolutely.
And you can do what you're doing. I wanted that to be shared, that they are an actual family. They are family members that.
Yep. So let's just do a little bit of the opening track, Ted's Jam. I'll fast forward through the intro that you just listened to, so you can get a little bit of an idea of what the pedal steel guitar sounds like and how he plays it. Energy for days.
Just watching, listening to that, I want to now. Is there a video? Like, can you find it on YouTube? Like, I'd love to watch it and just see that energy too, because I'm sure
I have seen some of their videos. Yeah. And I'll find some good ones and I'll put them in the show notes. I haven't seen a video of this particular show or anything like that, but I mean, going back to 2001, that was beginning of smartphone days. I don't even think the iPhone was out at that point. So iPhone came out in 04, maybe.
But even so, there's not going to be much
later than that.
Video,
I graduated college in 04. I still had a flip phone, so it was probably 08 was the iPhone.
Right. Yeah. But the thing
2001.
But the thing is like, you feel the energy in the music, and this kind of goes with like Little Charlie and the Nightcats and all that stuff, because you build that rapport with the audience as you're playing. Their energy is a different type of energy that they're putting out there. So I'd love to see what that was. Just if there was video, just to see how that was, like putting the music to the video and going.
Yeah.
there's that energy. Not that you really need to watch the video to get that energy out of that, because that build is just impressive, like the way it builds. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that you were drawn to it at the beginning, because I know you're not a jam band guy, you're not a live album guy, but one of the things that, and you mentioned this when we saw Joe Bonamassa, this stuck out in my head too, I don't know why, but I remember you saying, he sings through his guitar.
Yes.
So does Robert Randolph.
Oh, yeah. And that was something I brought up, like when we spoke about our teachers, and I was talking and thanking my saxophone teacher. Well, I don't know if he's still alive or not, because I have not heard from him, but he knew I was a singer, and he taught me to play as if I was singing through the horn, which is why I tend to have led more towards classical playing than jazz playing. That's also theory-wise, I was more connected to classical than I was jazz. I just didn't grasp it very well. But yeah, when he played guitar, when we watched him on stage with Charlie, I'm going to remember this, with Charlie, and he played, he sang through his guitar. So, words or no words, they came out of the guitar. And he definitely does that. Robert Randolph definitely does that. He's singing something, and words are not needed for what he's singing, and that's just that's something I think I've always looked for. And then when you shared the album, I was like, oh, this is done. This just, I'm not listening to the right music to know that it's done. Or it's different, because when you listen to, I hate to use the word pop song, but like an American, like in a standard song, like a Nat King Cole song, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're singing. But when you go to an instrumental song back in the day, unless they're jamming, you don't get a lot of those recordings. You don't feel it the same way.
Yeah.
And unless like the song is your song, you wrote the song, you're playing the song, if there's a reason why you're playing it the way you're playing it. But listening to that just reminds me of that. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
They have a lot of audience participation. So like track 3 and track 5 on that album. Track 3 is called The March, and he gets up and teaches them how to do this dance he calls The March. And then track 5 is, I don't know what you came to do, I think. Yeah, and that's stomp your feet, jump, and then clap your hands, and a whole bunch of audience participation. And I mean, he specifically says in the beginning where he's introducing the song, he's like, "Listen, if you're not gonna clap and dance, like go outside, because I don't want to see you. Like, I want people having fun.
That's
and
great.
If you are in someone else's way who's trying to have fun, like just go somewhere else."
And I have to say, when we talk about how these people are not mainstream, and we're not putting the mainstream performers or entertainers or musicians down, because when you do watch some videos of their concerts, people are up and dancing and they're getting into it, and some of these people play the stage so well that they interact with the audience very well. Yeah. But it's a difference when you have a Robert Randolph and a family band interacting with an audience than when you have that mainstream performer interacting with an audience, you know, and that I think is a big part of what we're talking about. Like that performer, that mainstream performer, if you put them in a crowd with 80 people, I'm not saying they won't perform well, but it may be a different performance.
Right.
Whereas you put Robert Randolph and the family band in an 80-person group listening to them to a large arena, you're going to get the same energy.
And I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to tell you a little story in a little bit.
See, I knew we needed to segue.
Yeah, it was a good segue. So in 2003, he came out with his first studio album called Unclassified. And I'm just going to read, this is a little thing from the guy that I think he works for TiVo. He wrote a little review through Qobuz, and it says, the group's studio debut, Unclassified, followed in 2003 and introduced Randolph to an even wider audience. One new fan was veteran guitarist Eric Clapton.
Wow.
Who brought the band out on tour and appeared on Robert Randolph's third release, Colorblind, in 2006. So when I was working at the school with Charlie, we were, his office was next to my computer room. So we talked all the time, and, I had music playing all the time. And the art teacher just outside the door was into music as well. So she came in one day and she said, I'm going to see Eric Clapton tonight. And I went, cool. And I knew that Robert Randolph was opening up for Eric Clapton that night. And I was like, do I tell her about Robert Randolph, or do I just let her figure that out on her own? So she came in the next day. She goes, I have to tell you about this band. I went, Robert Randolph and the Family Band. She goes, how did you know? I was like, I follow Robert Randolph all the time. I knew he was opening up for Eric Clapton. She goes, after I heard Robert Randolph play, I didn't want to hear Eric Clapton play anymore. I just wanted more Robert Randolph. So yeah, he's great. And the album that came out in 2006, Colorblind, that one was featured for the All-Star game, the NHL All-Star game, was one of the title tracks. So I guess you've been having us go through kind of like the timeline.
Because you see you hear the progression of the musicianship, and not that it changes, but you see how their music maybe matures, maybe it doesn't, maybe it cycles out.
I think you'll see that with him. So we went from jam band to, this is his first studio album. So this is called Unclassified. This is the first track off of Unclassified, a track called Going in the Right Direction. And this is the first time that he really starts bringing religion into this. And I mean, you can listen to this album and not know it's religious based, I think. But if you start thinking about that, yes, there's religion behind all this.
It's not in your face.
Yeah, it's a very subtle. I was thinking about it on the way home today. It's almost like, it's like a steak, and you know how when you cook a steak, you have to put salt on it. It's like you don't know it's there, unless it's missing. Like if it's missing or it's too much, but I think this album in particular, it's a good balance of, for me anyway, and I think for you too, where it's not over the top religion, but it's still got a really good groove.
Right.
And there's a lot of really great stuff on here. So, but if you listen to the lyrics, you'll realize that, this is religion, So this is called Going in the Right Direction. So he's big on starting out with that really long, drawn-out series of chords. He likes doing that. But yeah, I mean, if I didn't, in fact, when I first got this album, I didn't realize how religious this was. I didn't notice. It was just, and I think that's why I really like this album.
Because I don't know if I would classify it as religious, as more in just faith-based.
Right.
Because he has a faith, or based upon the music, you state that he has a faith. Yeah. So I would, because he doesn't classify it as a religious album. He doesn't classify it as gospel. He doesn't classify, and he just has a faith that he sings about through his music. And I think that's why, like, kind of using the steak metaphor, but I think what
fat guys got to go with food.
So, but going to what you're saying is, it's just you feel his faith for the music.
Yeah.
So it's not in your face. It's not like it's not like a gospel song where it's in your face. And I'm not discrediting the gospel song, because, like I said, I love gospel music, but it's not in your face about the gospel religion. It's I have a belief, I have a faith, this is what drives me forward. And I think,
and it's kind of like what we do here. It's like we love music. We're just trying to share it. That's what he's doing.
Exactly.
He's got a faith. He's just trying to share his faith.
Yeah,
That's
it's just it's well balanced.
He's not trying to push you into it.
Yeah, it's very well balanced. And there's some songs where it's a little bit more out front because of the lyrics that are chosen, but it still doesn't ever feel more than just a balance of this is what, like, it's not a love song. It's a faith song, a song about faith, and that's what.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. But they're so funky and they're so soulful. It's so good.
Yeah, I can't leave this album without playing this one. This is a track called "Squeeze," and this talk about funky. Squeeze. Such a strong groove.
It is.
And don't listen to this while you're driving because you will go 90 miles an hour down the road. But yeah, so that's just strictly instrumental. It's the only instrumental tune on this album. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Such a good song.
So let's continue on through our little travel in time with Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
And that album is what year?
2003.
2003.
So 2001, 2003. So in 2006, this is 3 years later, they came out with an album called Colorblind. And this is this is probably their most popular song that they've ever done. This is called Ain't Nothing Wrong With That. This was used during the NHL All-Star Game in 2006, I believe it was. So that was played a lot. I remember hearing on commercials and it was on TV. So, I mean, 7 million views on Spotify. Definitely his biggest hit. So.
Well, you know, and I appreciate the fact the NHL was like, hey, listen, we need to use the song. They could have easily used any, I don't want to say better known artists, but they totally like, were like, hey, listen. It's still surprising to me that after the NHL played it, that he isn't. I mean, I know he's well known, but I feel like he could be better known.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised that even after that, like, it didn't spike the list. And maybe it has to do with the genre. Maybe it has to do with the faith based on it. Maybe
could be.
It would just, which I think is kind of silly to not promote something to that extent because. Isn't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but isn't country music a lot of faith-based music?
Yeah. Well,
I'm not saying all of it. I'm just saying.
I mean, classical music for sure.
Classical, exactly. I mean, so it's like, you know, but it's.
I know schools have a hard time getting some music in because it's just too religious,
right,
you know.
Exactly.
But what people don't understand is so much of it is based in religion.
Right. But I mean that. But yeah, I totally remember that song. I totally remember it being played and like you said, through commercials and whatnot. So that was 2006.
And that's 2006, and this is the album that Eric Clapton was on, and he played on "Jesus Is Just All Right." So here's a little snippet of that. just a great song, great arrangement of it.
I have to say, a lot of their songs are just good.
Yeah.
I don't think I've listened, when you listen through their music, sometimes you get like a song on the album, you're kind of like, oh, it's all right, good. It's good. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like, I think they're one of the few rare groups that have albums that they have good songs throughout the album. Because there's a good feel. It's a feel good song pretty much.
Yeah.
All the way through every song.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that they do a really good job of, and there are a few other artists that do the same thing, but they really design their album like flow very well.
Yes, agreed.
You start on a high, then you kind of relax in the middle, and they bring you back up at the very end.
Right.
They're really one of those few groups that really pay attention to. I want you to listen to my whole album, and I really picked this specifically for. They're in a certain order. Like Victor Wooten's the same way. Like he wants you to listen to that in that order, not just the one or two songs that you like. Like listen to the whole thing.
And I do. I catch myself, like even though there's songs on his albums, on Victor Wooten's albums that I love and they stand out to me, I'll always listen to the whole album. Like I can't get away from. All right, I'll skip ahead. I don't normally skip ahead. The only time I would is if there was a specific song I was in the mood to listen to at that moment. But if I start the album, I'm finishing the album. Yeah.
So then moving along, that was 2006, 2010. He came out with an album called We Walk This Road. And I'm going to actually move to 2011 because they did basically a bunch of live stuff from that album on the next album. So 2011, they came out with Robert Randolph and the Family Band live in concert. This is their second live album. And this one is very different than the last one. The first live album was very much jam band. This is much more, we got songs now, we have a set list kind of a thing. The first one really felt like we're just going to sit here and just whatever we feel like doing, we're going to do. This one felt more like we have an order, we got stuff that we're going to do. There's a lot of covers on this one. They did do Squeeze, which was that instrumental piece that I played earlier. And then they had a whole bunch of other people come up and play. So this is a little bit of a cover of I'll Take You There, which features Susan Tedeschi on the vocals.
Got Ryan Shaw and Susan Tedeschi, it's a family thing.
Come on now, help us out. Y'all ready to go someplace? Oh, I know a place. Ain't nobody crying. Ain't nobody walking. Oh, there ain't no smiling faces. Always talking to the races. Come on now. Oh, come on and help me now. I'll take you there. Oh, I said help me now.
I'll take you there.
Oh, help me.
I'll take you there.
Susan Tedeschi, what a voice.
It's just, it's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean,
We need to just talk about her one episode. I'm just,
yeah, we do.
She says she has a phenomenal voice.
Yep. And you know what? And she's not trying to do anything
It's just her
out of the
voice.
ordinary. It's just her.
That's
it's just
and
raw
and like that goes back to Ava Cassidy. That goes back to Sarah Watkins. That goes.
It's that it factor.
It's that I'm not doing anything special. This is my voice. You know, I
and Rick Estrin too on the harmonica.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
what he said. I'm not doing anything special with this
Right.
instrument. I'm just doing what I do.
Right, and that's the thing. It's just it also goes back to what Jess was saying. Some people are just that natural talent, and it's like those are those few that have this natural ability to just go.
Yeah.
Not saying that they don't practice, not saying they don't do their whatever they have to do, but they can just go. And they're the ones that, on the sad point for Ava Cassidy, but everybody else, they're the ones that longevity is going to be there for them.
Yep.
And as a singer, that's like, oh, I wish I was like that. But at the same time, you're in awe that it's there.
Yeah. Yep. Here's a little bit of Ryan Shaw taking the next one.
Ryan Shaw, come on. Well,
And what I love about this little section here, and I want to play it again just because I think it's important to note. So when you listen to Robert play, it's a lot of flash and a lot of, really crazy stuff. But if you listen to him when he's accompanying Ryan Shaw, like Ryan says something and then he plays a little thing and he lays back and then it's Ryan sing and then he plays a little thing while Ryan's breathing.
Right.
And that's that conversation that we're talking about. So just listen to the interplay between Ryan and Robert on the guitar.
Well, I know a place, y'all. Ain't nobody crying. Say, there ain't nobody worrying. Oh, no. There ain't no smiling faces doing what, y'all.
It's so well done. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows how to support his singers. And like Ryan Shaw is not part of the band. Like this is someone that walked onto the stage that probably that day and went, "Hey, I want to sing with you." And, all right, cool, let's do it. Like that's the musical, the understanding of the musical language that he has.
There's an ease to it. It's just it's a natural thing. It goes back to just the being natural with it. Like even though he didn't learn the instrument in a traditional form, it was more of a I'm watching, I'm gonna copy, like that type of thing. It still doesn't matter. There's his innate, a natural musical ability that makes him even more in tune with what's going on around him as a musician. Yeah.
Yep. And I think a lot of that has something to do with how he learned how to play. If you remember what we were talking earlier, like he learned by watching and listening.
Right.
And I think that as musicians, and I talk to people, my musicians, my students, about this all the time. Like as musicians, we don't listen enough. Like we had a whole episode about listening.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, like we don't listen enough. And I think that, when you start listening, you can have those conversations musically. But if you're not listening, there's no way you can do that.
And I mean, that was a big thing when we were in college and we were under Alexander Dashnaw. He made us listen. Even though he didn't mix us up in like alto, soprano, tenor, like he had us grouped based upon the voicing, but there'd be times where he would just have the sopranos sing their part. So we heard what they were doing at that moment.
Yes. And it wasn't just for the benefit of the sopranos to learn their part. It was so everyone could hear what was going on. Because if you don't know what the other voice is doing, you don't know where your part fits in and how to interact with it.
Right.
And I think Jim McRoy was the same way. Because I remember there were rehearsals where he would just say, "Don't play louder, listen louder."
Right.
And I have taken that with me like everywhere I go. Having my students listen louder. It's not about playing louder. You need to be more careful about how you listen.
Right. And that's. And it's funny because you even take that to recordings where, when I was practicing or rehearsing or training with my teacher, they would just give me artists, singers to listen to. Some of them were not even in my vocal range. It was just the fact that the way they carried themselves, the ease of their voice, how they've done this, how they did this. And you don't realize how that makes an impact on what you're doing. They're not asking you to imitate their voice. No. Though me being the person I always did it for fun. But but what they're saying is that going back to what Jess is saying, like when it comes to singing, there's a technique, and how are they using that technique? And it does. Right. It comes the same way with playing the instrument. And I think even Victor Wooten put this in a song, and I forget the name of the song, but like it talks, the initial part of the song is a narrative of a guy saying, you can wear this shirt and I can wear this shirt. I don't know, you probably know what song I'm talking about. And the song talks about, we're going to play the same thing, or we're going to do the same thing. Doesn't matter how we get there. Right. So you can learn the traditional way of playing the instrument. I can learn the untraditional way of playing an instrument. But no matter what, if we could perform that piece, that's awesome. And you're going to perform it the way you're going to perform it no matter what. And no matter how hard you practice, you're going to be good. And no one's going to say, well, that pointer finger was not on the right fret or on the right string or on the right thing. And I'm sure you've come across this playing piano. I'm sure there's been plenty of times you've been playing and it may say to do it one way, or you're taught to do it one way. I'm doing quotes in the air because you guys can't see this, but I'm air quoting. You're taught to do it this way, and you're like playing. You're like, I'm not going to do it this way because that doesn't flow for me, and that I think that's why he is so good at what he does. And it's that call, response, that listen, that he's not trying to overpower. Never overpowering. Exactly. He's only playing when he's supposed to play, and that's very cool. And those voices, though. Sorry. All right.
So that was 2011, and then we go to 2013, which is Lickety Split. There was something about Lickety Split, I thought. Oh yeah, so Lickety Split again. Some more artists found him on Lickety Split: Trombone Shorty and Carlos Santana. I mean, what you're doing right when Eric Clapton's a fan and Carlos Santana's a fan.
And that blows my mind because it's like they found him, but he's been playing for so long. This is nothing against the artist that found him. It's just that why didn't they, what kept them from hearing them sooner? Or who kept them? Or, that just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the other cool thing is, if you look at the breadth of the people that have found him: Eric Clapton, blues; Carlos Santana, blues and kind of rock; Trombone Shorty, kind of the jazz, North Mississippi type stuff, Louisiana type, stuff. Medeski, Martin and Wood, the range that he has spanned. And that was the thing that they were saying when he was playing in the church. It was, when he came in, it was funk, it was soul, it was jazz, it was country, it was everything, and that was what he was all about. And he would breathe life into these, already fun church services. He took it to another level.
Well, I mean, I grew up going to Catholic church services, and nothing against the music because I know they're centuries old songs, but there is a little bit of a heaviness and a little bit of a what's the word without heaviness is probably the best word, and it wasn't very lively. It was very just kind of but just drawn out, and like I said, as a musician and as a singer, when I was a kid, I didn't understand it or get it or appreciate it because it was like, oh, I'm going to church again, or whatever. But as I got older, even though I don't really fall into any religion, I respect it and I understand it and I get it. And, so that it's just, but to go into a service and have funk play, I mean, that's a different level.
Yeah.
That's a different level. I don't care what religion you are, that's going to give you some form of faith. Just,
Yep. So then in 2017, his next album was called Got Soul, and that features vocalists such as Darius Rucker.
Yes, that was
a country artist, and Corey Henry, who plays for Snarky Puppy. Yeah. I mean, again, a huge range of stuff and people, and they're all drawn to him because he covers so much. And I think this is another thing I was thinking about, and probably a topic for another episode. We talk a lot about genres of music. Are there really genres of music?
See,
or is it just music?
Right. So, and that's the other side to it, because everything comes from somewhere. Everything. Yep. What is that lyric? Everything comes from some beginning and its end. Right? Is that the lyric? Yep.
How does it go?
I know it's
every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. That's what it is.
But it's true. It's. If you bring up, I'm going to bring it up just because why not? Sure. I can. And, talk about, if you want to go for it, I want to bring up the definition of music. So this is a dictionary term. This is from the Oxford Languages. Music, vocal or instrumental sounds or both combined in such a way as to produce beauty of form, harmony, and expression of emotion. Then the second one, the written or printed signs representing vocal or instrumental sound. It doesn't talk about genre. It doesn't talk about anything more than the expression of emotion by using harmonies. If you go outside and you close your eyes and you open your ears, or if you're someone who is now hard of hearing or deaf, they would go out and feel it. But if you were to go outside and close your eyes and just listen, there are sounds everywhere. Everything from natural sounds, the wind blowing, the rustling of the leaves, the bugs with their musical sounds, the birds chirping, and then you have the unnatural industrial sounds where you have the honking of the horns, the car engines revving. I was listening to sirens in the background that were thankfully not picked up by my microphone, and but you sit there and you're like, it's a symphony of sounds constantly around you. What's that genre of music?
Right.
It's a very good. I mean, that could definitely be an episode just talking about. Okay, so here's to our listeners. We want you to either email us, send us a tweet. Is it a tweet? Is that what you call it? Yeah, a tweet. DM us.
Yeah, how about this? Send a tweet about
Send
this.
a tweet about this. You could DM us, or you could just send a tweet to it, and tell us what you think about that thought process of, is there really a genre or is it just music? And we classify it into genre for the purpose of business. Because that's how it sells.
Yep. And I think I mentioned this before, because Victor Wooten brought this one up. Back when he was a kid, like, pop music was not the pop music that we know today.
It's just what's
Pop
popular at the
It was what was popular at the time. He said you could listen to James Brown, then Frank Sinatra, and then maybe some new classical piece. Like, it was just popular at the time. That's what pop music was. Now we have pop music. There's a specific genre of pop.
Right.
There's we could put a definition to it. The chord structure and how it fits together, and the way the melodies and the harmony and specifically the rhythm and the metronome settings, like, that's all like scientific at this point. These songs are designed to be catchy, and they use the melody and the rhythm to do it.
Let's try to hashtag this. Let's do hashtag TOTM conversation.
I need to put that in the notes because I will forget.
I think I put that in when I share out posts, but let's use that to push that. So hashtag TOTM conversation. Just share your thoughts. And this is something I learned in my training over the past few days, and I do want to this is a very cool thing to take out of it. She never said that your answer was wrong. She said, okay, think about the question, give me your answers, no wrong answers. Which is true, because it's everything is encompassed under an answer. So you may say one part of the answer and someone else may say the other part of the answer, and that's what builds the the global answer, whatever you want to say. So there's no wrong answer to this.
Yep.
Just what you think, what you share. Let's build a meaningful, kind conversation of what you think. Yeah. That's, oh no, we can go on forever on this. You know why?
Yeah, we can.
So
back to Robert
Randolph.
We got one more album to talk about, and that is his last
Him
album.
and Victor Wooten have both started meaningful conversations without them even being here.
Yep. Hint, hint. Get on our show, please.
So, Robert Randolph, you said there's one more album?
Yes, called Brighter Days. Came out in 2019. His most recent album. And I'll play a little bit of this one. This is called Don't Fight It. This is the end of the song.
Come on, talk to me. If you want some love, place the biscuits in the oven, that's the recipe.
So yeah.
But all of his albums have so much energy.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was going to bring up, and I forgot to bring up. I'm glad you said it, because like those are studio albums. Like for me, like I always find the studio albums to be like, and I think we heard it last week with Little Charlie when we're talking about Dump That Chump. The studio album was it's kind of good. Then once you get to the live version, like the tempo picks up, there's an energy there. But like with Robert's stuff, like even his studio stuff, like is just
and that goes
nonstop.
That goes because I brought up the question about do they record well live or they record live in studio, and Robert Randolph does both because you don't feel a difference in what he's doing. The only difference you have is the fact that you have an audience behind them that are screaming and yelling because they're having a great time. And, whether that's production or not, but just the energy of the music is there, I would love to know how they record, if they all record together, if they record separately.
Yeah, I have a feeling they all record together.
I think so too.
I mean, I think because there's so much conversation going on there, I think that they need to be in at least the same building.
And outside of the stuff that they cover, they're writing their own music, correct?
Yep, they are, yep.
Right? So they don't have writers, they're writing, which just totally, because you saw it with the Nightcats, they did the same thing where he writes the music that the whole world sings. No, he writes the music that and they play it, but because he's writing it, that conversation is in the music. And that's what you feel that with Robert Randolph. It's the same thing with Victor Wooten. I mean, the stuff that he writes, it's all like we really are gonna have so many episodes just on Victor Wooten. Yep. Because it's not just music with him; it's philosophy. Yep. It's life. It's all encompassing. Yep.
and just so you guys don't think that like all Robert's stuff is fast and upbeat, this is a quick little tune called "Smile" that he did off of Unclassified. This is from 2003.
Me know you care. In spite of all the things we've been through, I know it was only a test. But now I wish that you were here with me to cure my loneliness, and I'll just smile.
And it's much slower, but it's still just gorgeous the way they do it.
And the energy is still there.
Yeah.
It really is. It's wow. I know what I'm listening to tomorrow.
Yeah. And I do have to say this, we've talked about how he's kind of kept the religious stuff kind of subdued in most of the stuff. I think his most recent album is a little bit more out in front with the religious stuff.
There are some songs that are straight out. It's a faith song, and they're still beautifully done. I mean, they're just so well done. But I'm just saying, like as an overall, it's he has a very good balance with that.
I think he does,
and I think that's huge. Yep. And because if he was fully on faith, I don't know how well the artists like Carlos Santana would have potentially worked with him. Right. I'm not saying anything against them. I don't know what they're like, but who knows? Because they may have never listened to him because he would have been put under a religious blanket, and maybe they may have not thought about it or listened to him. Yep. So it's that who knows the whole reasoning and everything behind it. But I like I said, it's so well balanced.
Yeah.
But then again, I listen to gospel choirs. So, you know.
So yeah, that is the catalog of Robert Randolph and the Family Band.
So what you've been doing the last few times that because you've chose mostly artists which have been phenomenal. You've given our listeners albums to jump off with, to start off with. What would you recommend to our listeners for this time?
I think if you're into the jam band stuff, definitely give Live at the Wetlands the first shot. If you're not into that, I'd say either Unclassified, the album from 2003, or the Live in Concert, Robert Randolph and the Family Band Live in Concert from 2011. Those would be the first places I start. If you like those two, then venture into Live at the Wetlands, and then branch out to his other studio stuff. I think his three best albums are the two live albums and Unclassified.
I'm going to tell you, as a listener, I was introduced by Kyle, who was not a jam band listener. I definitely encourage you to listen Live at the Wetlands. I definitely do it, because it definitely changed my thought on listening to jam bands.
Yep.
And I don't listen to Dave Matthews.
And what's funny is Dave Matthews is on, what album is that? I think it's Colorblind. Is he on? Yeah, he's on the Colorblind album. Dave Matthews, Leroy Moore, and Rashawn Ross, all four from the Dave Matthews Band.
Cool.
So, again, just branching out to more artists. So
right. Next week, I don't know if we have an episode planned out just yet.
Well,
I still think we're pondering a possible musician artist.
Let me take a look. Schedule.
Because I have
we are. You're right.
We are. This is an open episode, so even we're going to be surprised, because it's just a matter of which one of us decides to bring in something.
And I have to say, I have a decision coming up. So August 11th, Tower of Power is coming, and August 13th, Robert Randolph's coming. Do I go to 1, 2, or none of the shows?
Where they're playing not far from you?
Yeah, they're all in Cincinnati.
That's awesome.
And another name, Robert Randolph is playing with the Zac Brown Band. So yeah, and Tower of Power is playing with a group called Lettuce.
Delicious.
Never heard of them before. I have to do a little research on them. The first time I saw Tower of Power, Average White Band opened for them.
That's too funny. So I think that we leave Wednesday open-ended and see which one brings something to the table.
Yep.
Or the Zoom screen, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
You know, or maybe we talk more. I don't know. I don't want to get too philosophical in an episode, but maybe I'm going to look for some quotes.
Okay.
Where we can play a game and pick out lyrics from songs and see if the other person can figure out the song.
Oh, I'll lose that game.
I know. So I was just that's a quick win for me. Or maybe we can get Charlie on next week.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get a hold of him and get that worked out. That'd be cool.
Yeah, maybe we can get Charlie on.
Yeah.
And then we don't even have to talk. We'll just let him go.
Yep.
We'll just let him go. Just let him enjoy. Cool.
Yeah, I'll just be here to Spotify the stuff he wants to listen to.
Right. That's it. And I'll just go, what? No way. Huh? That's amazing. It's me, Mario. Thank you for sharing the journey of Robert Randolph and the Family Band. I do remember them being one of the ones that you were like, and I think you shared it with me fairly quickly of you purchasing the album.
I remember driving home, pausing, going, "I need to call Chris."
Yeah, it was like that. I remember you telling, and you almost told us I was going into Barnes and Nobles in the rain, and as the sky opened up, the album shined in front of me, and I did not know what to do, so I got into my tiny Miata. And
my Miata had better speakers than the F-150, so
that I remember that. But
when you had in the headrest,
yeah. But even your Mini had pretty decent setup when you set it up.
Yeah,
even though there was no room in the trunk, but you set it up nicely.
It was all right. Came out all right.
All right. Are you reading the closing?
No.
Oh, all right. Okay, so did Charlotte have anything to say of the previous episode?
Nope.
No.
I'm on a roll.
Wow. Charlotte.
But then again, it just came out yesterday, so she might not have listened to it yet. So
I cannot wait to find out if she has anything to say. Again, I'm going to shout out Charlie because like I said, the first and only time I met him was at the John Bonamassa, and I was so stuck on that theremin I forgot that we were there with three of us. But I know it was a great evening and we had fun, all three of us. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to speaking with you again, Charlie, and however many times we decide to bring him aboard. Cool. All right. If you have nothing else to say, I will happily read the closing.
Go for it, sir.
All right. Thank you again. That was, guys, just to remind you, it's Kyle. That was Kyle. As again, waving to me through Zoom. Thank you for listening to Turn on the Music, the podcast. We hope that you join us next week. Follow us on Twitter at Turn on the Music and on Instagram at Turn on the Music Podcast. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend. And if you really want to help us promote the show, head over to Apple Podcasts or the podcast service of your choice and give us a 5-star rating. Remember, always share the music. Hashtag TOTM Conversation.
Let's listen to Run for Your Life.